Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of Area 312 Rock and Metal Vodcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co-host,
Rex.
Friends, you know our next guest. He was the guitarist of The Crucified. He was also the principal figure, of course, behind the Mynheer solo album and Applehead. And he's guested on albums by artists that we also love and appreciate, such as Deliverance and XL and DVD. Friends, it could be the one and only Greg Mynheer. Welcome, Greg. It's an honor to have you.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's been a long time coming, Greg, and thank you so much for being with us today. We always like to start at the beginning, but if you don't mind, I'd like to share, Greg, when I first heard your music, and that was in 1992. I purchased the brand new Applehead Meaning cassette back in the day. I loved it. And Greg, I was a youth minister back then, and this was my first tenure as a youth minister. I had a tape library for the high school kids in my youth group. And back in 92, that was in there. And I just want you to know that my kids, they listened to that, the meaning cassette tape so much that it wore off the printing on the cassette itself. And so you were very loved by my youth group, and I just want to thank you for that. So, good stuff right there. So
thanks for sharing that. That's really neat to hear. It's
yeah.
Especially all these years later, I actually get to hear more stories now than back then because of things like this or social media. And it's really just it's neat to hear the impact some of that stuff had.
Yes, sir. Well, they absolutely loved Meaning, a great album. 2023, friends, I call it the year of Mynheer. And we're going to delve into that and find out why here in just a little bit. Greg, let's start at your beginning. We'd like to ask, did you have music in the home growing up? Did your folks have the radio going, or did they play instruments, or what was your musical upbringing?
Not a whole lot. My dad was into symphonic music, so he loved Beethoven and Bach and Mozart and all that stuff. My mom was a huge Elvis Presley fan, but she didn't play it much in the home. I think that was more when she was a teeny bopper and stuff. My dad would blast the symphony music while he was in his study. He was a district attorney, and he'd be in his study doing all his law stuff. And he would have that blasting in the front room that would just go through the whole house, and I couldn't stand it. It's funny because I appreciate symphonies and stuff like that, but to me, it was almost like them hearing heavy metal. To me, it was this noise that really like bothered me, and he would play it so loud. So I had my aunt. She played acoustic guitar and sang. That's probably as a child the first and only person I ever saw playing music. But I don't know. Something was always in me, I suppose, because my mom said when I was in my car seat as a little baby, anytime dueling banjos would come on, she said I would go nuts and just start bouncing up and down. And of course, as a little baby, little toddler, I used to drag the pots and pans out of the cupboards and start beating on them. But that I discovered music on my own for the most part.
Very cool. Let me ask you something, Greg. I've always been curious about this because I've noticed, especially I held up Meaning earlier, you play a variety of instruments fluidly. You play the guitar, you play the bass, you play organ, I believe, you play the drums. So with these respective instruments, Greg, who might have influenced you for the guitar, if anyone? And were you self-taught with these instruments, or did you take any lessons at all growing up?
Okay, well, I can answer that whole thing in one story, really. When I was 7 years old, I remember I had probably about $10 saved up, and I rode my bike down to Kmart, which was halfway across town. So I don't know why my parents would let this 7-year-old, I was either 7 or 8. So I was in second grade. Rolled my bike down to Kmart, and because I had this little box record player at home, the one with the lid, you open it up and it has the built-in speaker. I wanted my own record. So I went down to Kmart, and I'm flipping through the records, don't know what to buy, don't know, many of these bands. And I come across the first Kiss record. And I picked it up and looked at it. I saw the face paint, the 4 of them there. I had no idea what it was. No idea, but I had to have it. I took it home, put it on the little turntable, and was blown away. And I had these 2 wooden stakes for a horseshoe game. They were probably like this long and that thick. And I would take those and I would beat on the bed, and, like I was playing drums. But I always wanted to learn to play guitar. That's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be ace. So in 3rd grade, my parents bought me a little electric guitar and a little amp. And I took a few lessons from an elderly man in town named Tony Farnelli. And he taught me songs like Camptown Races and Skip to My Lou, and I wasn't well, the lessons didn't last long. But when I was in 4th grade, my brother, my next up brother, who would have been in 7th grade then, got a drum set. And he didn't play it much. So I would go and sneak into his room and started playing his drum set. And that was something that I could teach myself, because I could hear what the drums were doing, and understand it. So I played drums until sometime in 7th grade was when I picked up that guitar again and started fooling around with it and trying to learn to play it and teaching myself. So I'm mostly self-taught. I've had a few lessons here and there. For drums, I was in the drum line and band in junior high in 7th and 8th grade. 9th grade seemed like a band geek thing, so I succumbed to that pressure and dropped out of band. Kept playing the drums at home, obviously. But 7th grade on through high school, all through the beginning of the Crucified and everything, just self-taught on guitar. I remember when I first learned what a power chord was, I was blown away, because before that I played with one finger. So kind of like smoke on the water. Dan, 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 dan. I played everything that way, which sounded horrible, and I didn't know how to tune the guitar very well. But the first time I learned the power chord, just 2 notes, that's the sound. And it just took off. Yeah.
You found the power. So let me ask you this, Greg. Part of the Year of Manir, this bad boy was released earlier this year. Let's see, I think it was on 2/24 of 23. And this is retooled, and it was released with bass, and you played the bass on this. Greg, did this give you a sense of completion? Originally, this was released in 1990. Did you feel a sense of completion then, having been able to re-release this as retooled?
I did, because this version was released in 2017, not long before, by Retroactive, which is the exact same as the original, except it has some bedroom demos, which is funny because I didn't even have these. They had these, and these were little 4-track cassette recordings that I did in my bedroom of the songs that were on here. So I don't remember the story of how they got those songs.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I want to give a shout out to somebody, our dear brother and friend Jeremy Brown from Torrential
It
Riff.
was Jeremy. Yes, it was. Because now I remember Jeremy telling me that he had those, but I don't know how he got them because I didn't give these out to anyone. The only person I ever remember giving those demos to was the owner of Narrow Path Records, which The Crucified was on at the time. And I sent him a cassette tape of them, and he was checking them out. So I don't know. I know Jeremy told me, but I don't remember how the heck he would have got those. But
He
anyway,
has his ways.
back to the story. Yeah. So this was re-released, but it's still without the bass on it. It never felt complete to me. And then when Rocks approached about doing this, which I thought, well, it was just put out in 2017 again. What's the reason for doing it again? So I said, well, if we're gonna do it again, let me put bass on it. That way it'll be different and there'll be a reason for it. So I put bass on it. I put some extra guitars here and there. I put some very limited backup vocals on Price. They're pretty back in the mix. But it's funny because people, and I'll share this because people have asked, some people thought, well, there's bass on it now, but the vocals got a little buried, stuff like that. Well, I didn't, the actual tape reels of this don't exist because I took the original and loaded it in to my computer and then just played everything else on top of it. Mm-hmm. And then I had to try my best to mix those things in to where they weren't stepping all over everything else that was there because I couldn't do anything about the original mix. So, but it turned out better overall having the bass there. It didn't step on things too much. So yeah, I can put that one to bed now.
Well, it's a great release. I'm glad that the bass was added to it. Greg, we're also here to talk today about another reason it's the year of Manir. This bad boy was released on the first day of this month, that being 9/1 of 2023, September the 1st. Jaymi Millard plays the bass on this bad boy. And I'm curious, Greg, where did you and Jaymi meet up? And great call having Jaymi because it sounds phenomenal. But being as you also can play the bass, where did you and Jaymi meet up at? And what was your deciding factor saying, hey, I want Jaymi to play bass on this new Applehead album?
Okay, so someone had posted on Facebook. It was Jaymi and I were not friends, did not know each other. We're not even Facebook friends. Someone posted on a Christian metal page something about, maybe it was about the Rocks Records re-release of the Applehead record. Anyway, he commented, and I think his first comment had a picture of him holding the original CD, and I don't know if it took a second comment to do it, but at whatever point he said, hey, Greg, if you ever want to play these old songs live, let me know. So anyway, I stalked his Facebook page and first of all, I saw this guy lives in the same town as I do in Little Spring Hill, and then number two, discovered that he was an incredible bass player. So I responded or I messaged him and he like called me or messaged back I think maybe I gave him his phone number. He called right away. He didn't even, it wasn't like the next day. It was like as soon as I pushed send with my phone number, within minutes, he's calling. And we hit it off right away. The next day we met up for lunch. And so I was already deep into this. All the bass tracks were already done. I'd already recorded all the bass tracks. All I had left were, I think, a few guitar solos and some vocal things. And anyway, said, hey, if you want me to play any songs on that new record, let me know. So he came over and played one, and made it so much better. So I asked him, hey, you want to do some more? And he just kept coming over until we'd done them all. I was going to keep one, in Pouring Rain. I was going to keep one song for myself where I played everything on it. But then I had him come over, and we figured what we'll do is we'll have him play bass to it as well. And we'll have as a bonus track, we'll have the other version. Well, he came over and did such a good job on the bass that I just said, all right, you got the whole record, whatever. So, and that's why, because he was such a part of the album, and then, we've become such close friends. And even though it's, mostly me on this thing, it's more like a duo now, in that he's just as much a part as I am with trying to make connections, to find band members, promoting it, this and that. So that's why, I included him in pictures and put him in the album and stuff, because he wasn't just a guest player. He's like my right-hand man,
Sure.
So sure glad I found him.
Well,
and I think that was, I don't think that was random. I think that was God bringing him to me, and he feels the same way, because I didn't know if I was gonna form a band out of it. I didn't even know what to expect out of this thing. I didn't expect people to like it as much as they did. I didn't expect it to turn out as good as it did. It was just well, hey, I might as well do it for fun type of thing, and it just seems to be doing a lot more than that.
Sure.
Well, I might be jumping the gun a little bit, Greg, but roughly altogether then, how much time did it take to do the album, maybe from writing to, getting Jaymi involved in doing the bass tracks? Roughly what was the time frame on that, Greg?
I've been trying to figure that out, and I can't really tell. I know 2 years, maybe more, because some of the music I had recorded as just jams in GarageBand when I was first learning to record with a digital workstation, because I'd never had any digital recording stuff. The last recording I had, I did have a little digital Porta Studio, which I still have, but that was just a little 8-track thing. Before that, the last recording gear I had a cutting edge ADAT in the early 90s, and it was synced up to a 1/2-inch tape machine. So I just hadn't had any equipment and done much recording since then. So when I moved here and actually in this house have a music room, have like my own space, I just figured I'd start fooling around for fun. So I bought a little Mac laptop and started fooling around with GarageBand. And that's really where this whole thing begun, because I started recording these musical ideas and thought, wow, I can like record at home and it turns out pretty decent, And by the time Bill from Rocks and I started talking about a new Applehead record, I had already had, a few of the musical ideas from this album. Let's see, Down, all the music was written. Pretty Creepy, all the music was written. Well, maybe it's just those two. Those two were already written and recorded musically. So that probably started, me fooling around with GarageBand probably started 3 years ago. But when I really started saying, okay, I'm going to record an album. So write and record an album, that's probably been more like 2 years.
Okay.
That was a long answer. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm curious, Greg. So, well, first of all, didn't Jaymi or doesn't Jaymi play with the Mark Slaughter band?
Yeah, he played. On the last, I think it's the last Mark Slaughter solo record. He played bass on, I'm not sure how many songs, and then toured, or played all the Slaughter solo shows. And then he also toured with actual Slaughter band when Dana wasn't available to play, because Dana plays with Vince Neil too. Yeah, it's Vince Neil. And that's, if I understand it correctly, I think that's like his main gig. So when he couldn't tour with Slaughter, Jaymi jumped in and toured with him. Yes.
So, Greg, you started working on some of these songs. I think you said Down and Pretty Creepy. You mentioned about Bill from Rox Records, Bill Bafford, coming to you, approaching about a new Applehead. But I had a question here, Greg, which was, when did the idea burgeon for you about new Applehead? So let me try to reword this in a way. Did you know, were you already, when you wrote Down and Pretty Creepy, were you already thinking about new Applehead? Or was it the fact of you were writing songs and Bill came to you and said, hey, Greg, have you considered about a new Applehead album? And so these songs morphed into an Applehead project.
Yeah, that was not an intention or consideration when I recorded those musical ideas. It was just fun learning how to work GarageBand, and I'm not sure if Bill asked me or if I floated it out there to Bill, but it was when he released this, and I saw that people were still interested, which kind of blew me away that many people out there still gave a rip and cared and wanted to have the album again because they lost it, or they still have the original but wanted a remastered version, whatever the reasoning be. I was like, oh wow, well, I have a venue to put it out, Rox. I can do it technologically at home and not spend a bunch of money, so why not? So maybe I floated it out to him and he said yes. But I'll tell you, when the idea of a new Applehead record definitely entered my mind, it's with the song The Destiny. Because let me think about that. I think The Destiny is the first song that lyrics were being written to. So my neighbor Chuck lives 2 doors down. He and I had been writing like kind of tongue-in-cheek country rock songs for fun here and stuff. And I had written the middle part to The Destiny musically. And so he was the guy writing the lyrics. And I said, have you ever written any Christian lyrics, religious lyrics? And he hadn't. And I said, well, you want to give it a shot? See what does this music make you think? And it's that the whole middle, really dark part. Mm-hmm. And he came up with what he came up with. That's what he heard it in, was the whole thing of, Jesus coming out of the tomb. Mm-hmm. Now, it was interesting because the first draft of that took a lot of creative liberty in imagining Jesus's thoughts and words. So I thought, wow, this is really good, but it makes me a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I floated it out to a buddy of mine, and he said, dude, if you can't take that many creative liberties, and I don't even remember. I'm sure we have the original lyrics somewhere. Nothing bad or anything, but just it's my buddy helped iterate as an outsider reading these lyrics, like why you're gonna piss off a lot of Christians, So I talked to Chuck and I said, we got to rein this back, and so he did. He brought it back. Finally, to where I was like, okay, when I'm reading this now, it feels okay to me. So after that, I figured, okay, well, it's just it's this piece of time, but what if we had something after it? So I wrote the music for the third part and gave it to them, and I said, write me some lyrics. We're talking Revelations now, So he did that. So then we had from when Jesus comes out of the tomb to the end of the world. Well, we need a beginning. So I wrote the music at the beginning, and he started drafting lyrics, and then I jumped in on that one and wrote all the verses to it, and then we put together what we had. So it was during writing that whole big long song that I said, okay, this is going to be an Applehead record. So now I can try to put words to the other musical ideas I had. And then along the line, friend of mine, Steve, the one I floated those Destiny lyrics to, he started sending me some lyrics. And then a guy named Brian Schertzer had hit me up on Facebook and just said, hey, if you ever need any lyrics, let me know. And I think there might have been an interview back then, that long ago, actually, maybe with Jeremy Brown.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been his Torrential Riff interview, because I was probably at about that time. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it was before that. But I probably said that I'm not a big lyric writer. So I think that's why Brian reached out to me, unless he just did randomly. So he wrote the lyrics for Worthless Words and In Pouring Rain. And then my buddy Steve wrote the lyrics for Raise Hell, and then The Rain Comes Down. So they sent me their lyrics. I massaged them and worked them out, and had to, make them fit the song in a lot of ways.
Let me ask you, Greg, first of all, on the Destiny, and, friends, if you don't have this terrific album, I implore you to pick it up. It's that great. As bonus tracks, the Destiny, which Greg is talking about, it's basically an epic song, and it is broken down as bonus tracks into the 3 suites that it is. And if you don't mind, Greg, just so I won't totally embarrass myself, you mentioned the 3 in conversation, but can you read off the titles for them in the Latin?
Yeah, I have no idea if I pronounce it correctly. Redemptio resurrexit et vivit. I have no idea. Ultima pugna or pugna. I don't know. Okay, here's the reason these are split up as bonus tracks, because it's confusing the heck out of people why those are on here. Is on the vinyl, those 3 won't fit on the vinyl, so it'll just be the full version. But since there was room here on a CD, since you got 80 minutes or so, whatever it is, I figured there might be some people that really like, a part or two of the song, but maybe don't like the other, and maybe would want to listen to part 2 standalone. So since we got the room on the CD to do it, I had my mix guy said, okay, just pull those apart and give them to me as 3 separate parts. Also, so putting them on for streaming and for iTunes, if anyone just wants to listen to one part, they can. So in doing that, I had to, I wanted 3 names for each part. So it's kind of like 2112 or something. That's the way I was looking at it. It's like a Rush song, or these songs where people have these movements to it. So trying to think of names for the 3. My neighbor Chuck, the one who wrote most of the lyrics in there, was of no help on that until I started typing in Google, which is obviously not the best way to translate language, but I'm putting in there what I'm trying to translate, and that's what I got. So then I had to. I told him, because he's Catholic, so I said, "Dude, do you got someone at church that can say that this is translated correctly? The Latin." And he said, "Yeah." And that's all I heard. And then like a month later, I'm like, "Dude, you never answered me." He said, "Yeah, I did. I said, it's all good." And I said, "Well, did you ask someone at church?" He said, "No, I took Latin in college. I took like many semesters of Latin. Yeah, it's good." So, now the funny thing is, you're going to stump me. Redemptio is redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Resurrexit et vivi is, however you say that, is rose and alive, I believe, risen and alive. And ultima pugna or pugna is final battle.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes, sir. I looked all that up too, because I've got to know, I'm one of those people. So yeah, you nailed it, Greg. Redemptio, redeeming, buying back; resurrection et vivi, to rise again and live; and ultima pugna, or however you say it, beyond or last or final battle. Now, you mentioned something very interesting, Greg, because we going back to the middle part of the suite, the resurrexit. I'll just leave it at that. From the narration of Christ from the first person of when he was rising and when he rose from the dead and coming out of the tomb, I should say. I was listening to that, Greg, and I was thinking about it, because you were talking about how at first that kind of had to be re-scripted or reworded. And I am a Christ follower, and it made me wonder. It made me think, because, I believe from what the Bible says that Jesus is God, and yet he was also all man. And we call that the hypostatic union, 100% God and 100% man. And so he is God, but yet he was also man. And, yes, it's good in that it makes you think. Here is the God man. I'll just say Emmanuel, God with us, and this is going on. He's rising. So it was very well done, very, very good, and it makes you think, and I appreciate it.
Well, so you kind of jogged my memory in there a little bit. So now I'm remembering the first draft of that section. It was almost like portrayed Jesus as a little more maybe confused or questioning, and that's what the deal was. So because Chuck was really trying to paint this picture of Jesus coming out and being like, wow, okay, but as my buddy Steve was impressing on me. He's like, dude, look, Jesus knew it was all happening before it happened. He knew he didn't have questions about what was going to happen before, what was going to happen after. So if you present it that way, people are really gonna take to it wrong. So yeah, that's why it was dialed back. And there's still a little bit of it in there.
Yep.
Once it gets to the chorus there, and my mind's going blank. Like when it says, I'm floating through this reality, I'm coasting, but I was okay with leaving a little bit of that in there.
Well, and you also had to tell the tale. I mean, it would be tricky, I would think, because you have to tell the tale of what's going on. When it's in the first person of Christ coming out of the grave. But the one thing about it, though, that you leave no question with is the Messiah, Jesus the Christ. He rose. Came out of the tomb and he rose. So there you go. So Greg, here's a really weird question. Have you ever been beseeched before?
Beseeched in explain
in this manner. So Greg, a little over 31 years passed between these two albums. I am beseeching you to please don't wait another 31 years, because I will be 83 with the next Applehead release. I'm hoping and praying that maybe something can happen before then. So the reason why I'm mentioning this, I'm seeing some Facebook inklings, if you will, of the possibility. I mean, this is such a hot ticket. It's such a great album. I'm seeing some Facebook inklings about you guys maybe taking this show on the road. I know it's you and Jaymi, and you were looking at potential other performers with you guys. Have you all accrued anybody else yet?
So we have a guitar player. We had two, one dropped out. We're still feeling out, for other members. I want to not be tied to a guitar all the time. So, and sing mostly. So I need two guitarists, really, two lead and rhythm guitarists. And it's hard. It's hard here. Even, being right outside of Nashville, there are tons of musicians, but it's hard to find someone who wants to be in a band, and it's not just the only concern isn't getting paid, because we have some. Jaymi's fairly tied in around here, knows a lot of people, so he's he has drummers that have listened and said, yeah, I'll do it, but it depends on my touring schedule with this band that I'm playing with. Or what's funny is he's had a lot of drummers that say, I love it, but I can't do that stuff anymore. He says, like, I haven't played, double bass in years, because now they're just playing, on Broadway in Nashville or something, and playing standards. But my dream in it was, I was really hoping, and I pray about this every day. God, you got to bring us the band. We need the band, and it needs to be the right guys. They got to be really good, and then they got to be a good hang. We would prefer if they were believers, but that is not a 100% have to be. But finding the people is just, it's been a real chore. But I was hoping to find people in town or close to, like when you're young and you get a band together and you have friends and it's a tight unit and this and that. And that's just, maybe that's unrealistic on my part. in these days and at this age, hoping to find other guys in the same boat that are old and still want to rock out, have a good time.
Well,
But
Greg,
yes, we're putting a band together. Absolutely, one way or another, we're putting a band together. Even if it ends up being some hired guys, we'll just have to bite the bullet and do it that way. And we're gonna play. We have like some big goals as far as playing. Really, we want to be in the world. We don't want to just go do Christian shows and Christian festivals and things. We want to play with secular bands, opening up for secular bands. And I'm not a real preaching type. So if we're playing live, you probably are not going to see me up blasting the word out to a crowd of people. That's not me. It never has been. And Jaymi and I have talked about it, that we feel like any ministry evangelism that would come to this band would be through one-on-one, because we like hanging out with people and talking and chilling out, and not like go play the show and then go and take off to your hotel room. We like hanging out with people. We just enjoy that. And I think that's when people experience Christ a lot more than when you're hearing them, especially at a secular show, shoving, the gospel down their throat. So that's where we want to be. We want to be taking the sick, or taking the medicine to the sick. And there, doing that. And then to answer your other question, yeah, there will be more new music. I've already been writing and recording. One song is already off to the mix guy. And I want to have a few songs mixed well, professionally, and kind of in the can as a what else do you have type of thing, in just in case an opportunity, a step up from this came along. I don't want to be standing there going, oh, well, we're working on material. Yeah, we're working on another record. I want to be able to say, yeah, here, this is what the next record's going to sound like. So
Well, Greg, I want to talk about the production. I know you recorded this in your home studio, correct?
yes.
But I mean, it sounds unbelievable. I mean, I was listening to it this morning with my wife before, this interview, and man, it is incredible sounding. How did you do that? Or that it's just incredible.
Well, thank you for that. And this makes me happy, because this is the same, I'm getting the same critique literally from everybody on all the reviews, whether they're Christian views. I take Christian reviews with a grain of salt, because in all honesty, in Christian music, Christian fans have had to take what they can get for so long. And I speak that, I mean, even with the Crucified and everything else, the productions typically are horrible. Now, nowadays, a little better, but back in the day, and that's just comes down to not having the money.
Mm-hmm.
I was really, really wanted to have something that sounded good. I knew that I could produce it, because producing is not mixing. Producing is putting the songs together, the arrangements together, the instrumentation, knowing how you want to have things mixed, what you want where in the mix, what you want to certain parts of song, what instruments you want featured or not featured, so the idea of the song comes across. But where I knew that I could not do the task was mixing, because I don't have the skills for it. I'm new in this stuff, and also it's always better to let someone else who has a different ear on your music work with it. So this was another just great, awesome godsend was Caleb Stevens, who's a young kid. He was in his last semester of recording mixing school when I met him, and Jaymi knew his dad and knew that dad had a son that was in recording school, and that's how we got him, and I could actually afford him. I'd tried with some other people, but it was just going to be so hard to do it, and I didn't having someone mix it who was way over here, far away, didn't live close, would just be another barrier that made it hard. And Caleb lives here in town with me. Now, only one time did I go over to his house and tell him some things I wanted mixed a little differently, just because it would have been easier than me like trying to text it all to him or whatever. Other than that, I was never in the room when he mixed.
Wow.
But he would send me the first mix of the song, and I would say, change this, change this, change this, bring this up, bring this down, blah, blah, blah. And I would, it's funny because I could tell when he would be resisting, because I would have this laundry list of things for him to change. And I would notice that, say there were 10 things to change. I would notice that 8 were changed. 2 of them didn't sound changed. So then I'd go back and I'll tell him, these other 2 things, I need you to change them. And he would send back another mix, and 1 of them was changed. So really did get his feet in. And it reminded me of, for a very short time, I knew the producer Michael Wagner from an old band I was in, and he mixed everyone in the 80s, a lot of people, but he mixed Master of Puppets, and he told me the story of how James and Lars were anti-reverb, and he's playing them one of the mixes, and they're like, no, get rid of all that reverb. They didn't like it, which I was like, man, Ride the Lightning is a really wet album, but for whatever reason, they didn't want reverb. And I guess maybe that's why And Justice for All is so dry. There's like nothing on that record,
Not even
that was where they were wanting to go. But so anyway, what Michael Wagner did is he said, okay, and I don't remember if he gave them the new mix the next day or if it was the same day, but he literally did nothing to it. Did nothing. And said, okay, here's the new mix I did. And they said, that sounds awesome. That's great. So sometimes these mix guys are like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then they don't do it, hoping they're going to play the little mind game on you. But anyway, Caleb did a fantastic job with it. I'm really, really, really happy. And I don't think he had, I'm not sure that he'd done any heavy stuff before. I think he was mostly kind of doing, contemporary stuff in the short amount of time that he'd been mixing stuff. So the Applehead stuff was definitely new to him. And I think he really he definitely enjoyed it because he's mixing the new song I just sent him and wants to keep working together. So,
well, he's going to be an up and coming pro, because if that is his first stab at like rock, man, that guy is talented as all get out.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure what stab it is, but I think it's probably his first stab at anything as heavy as some of that stuff is. And yeah, I think that's why I got to get him now while I can afford him.
Hearing you talking about the wars between you and him, Greg, it reminded me of Darth Vader, resistance is futile. So just to kind of, I'm not a professional reviewer or critiquer, but I listen to both mainstream and, Rex does too, and for lack of a better term, Christian metal. I mean, I don't really subscribe to Christian or secular stuff. It's just metal's a genre. But two of our other contemporaries and dear friends who also listen to both mainstream and Christian metal, Kevin Carruthers of Heaven's Metal Streaming Radio, and as we mentioned, Jeremy Brown of Torrential Riff, they both came to me separately when we were discussing the light side of the apple, and they both said individually, album of the year worthy. I do not disagree. So kudos to you, kudos to Jaymi, kudos to Caleb, and all involved with this wonderful album. So I'd like to ask you about another song on here, Greg, and this might be a little bit more of a candid question. So, well, first of all, before I get into that, let me ask you about this. So, The Crucified, 1986, you gave us Take Up Your Cross and Nailed. That was in 87. And then you gave us in 89 the self-titled album. And then you gave us The Pillars of Humanity. This is the remix version, but that came about in 1991. It was a Thrasher piece. Excellent album. Greg, I still have it. It's just upstairs in my my big trundle box that I have in my attic of stuff. But the 1995, August of 95 issue of Guitar World magazine with Ace and Dimebag, and his brother from on the front. That was a treat. I actually have that issue. But Greg, after that, in 95, it's like you disappeared. So if I may ask, Greg, where in the world did you go?
I went down a hole, I'll say. After, and let me explain how I got there. While I was still in the Crucified, and I've told this story several times before, but I'll try to shorten it up. While I was in the Crucified, the owner of Ocean Records introduced me to this female singer named Suzanne. She and I started writing songs together. We did form a band out of it. I was still in the Crucified. This was a band called Sweet Mary. Somewhere along in there, while writing and recording and everything, was when the Crucified broke up. The band Sweet Mary got a production deal with Matt Sorum, drummer of Guns N' Roses. We did that. That was a 9-month deal. Went in, recorded with him. Unfortunately, at this time, grunge had hit and all that stuff. And even though Matt, Guns N' Roses was still go play Southern in South America, played to 250,000 people, they were not so hot in the U.S. anymore. And by that, I mean, they weren't cool anymore, right? So when Matt would put together these showcases for us to play, the labels wouldn't show up, and I'm like, if Matt Sorum can't even get them there, then what the heck? So anyway, our deal with Matt Sorum ended after 9 months. Neither one of us wanted to renew. So we kept playing. Long story short, a guy named Mike from I think it was Mike from the Guns N' Roses camp stayed on as our manager, and we kept booking shows. He kept inviting record labels out. The vice president of A&R for Sony Records, Ken Commissar, comes out, sees us play, loves us, starts coming to our rehearsals. Last time I've ever seen him, he said, I want to do this. I want to sign you guys. He had signing power for Sony. He didn't have to ask to sign. He was vice president. He said, I want to sign you guys. I'm going to hook you up with a new producer that is used to working with a female singer, because that's a whole different animal. And I want him to get the arrangements tightened up and everything, and then let's do this. So we worked with this producer probably 4 or 5 nights a week for, I don't know, a few weeks or a month. And then he came in and told us, Ken left Sony, went to another label. It's not rock format. There's no deal. I can't keep coming and working on stuff with you. So that what did I wanted to do since I was 7 years old? I wanted to be a rock star, you know, and what music was, all I wanted to do was play music. So here I am, a broke musician, just had this golden ring deal fall, you know, pulled out of under me. And keep in mind, I was like 50% songwriter on this whole album of stuff. So that would have been, you know, if the deal had gone through and it was a big album, that would have been a life changer for sure. All things considered, it probably would have not have been the right path for me to go down to, and I'll get there. So being tired of being a broke musician, I had just started playing in a cover band. I'm like, wow, I can actually get paid to play my guitar and sing songs. So that's what I did. And then I moved back up to, because at that time I was living down in Southern California. I moved back up to Madera, California, took a house gig at a bar 5 nights a week. And from there, just dove into every bad thing for me, into, you know, full on alcoholism and drugs and, you know, sleeping around with anyone and everyone I could and all that stuff. And made a living for a long time off of playing in cover bands, and never did original music. I had no idea what was going on in the Christian industry after the Crucified, because you know, in my teen years during high school, I got into it a lot because we were young, impressionable kids in youth group, and we were led to believe that we should only listen to Christian music and never listen to any of that music that you grew up on and you loved. So for a long time, that's, you know, kind of what I did. But once I was out of that scene and on the Crucified anymore, I really didn't pay attention to the what was going on in the Christian market anymore, because I didn't have contact with any of those people anymore. So I was living up in Madera and playing in bars 5 nights a week. So that's why I just kind of dropped out for so long.
Let me ask you, Greg. And also, I just want to say, thank you so much for sharing and for your candor. And also, I'd like to say that I can totally relate on a much smaller scale in my life, but everything that you said about your journey, I've been there. So thank you so much for your candor. I'd like to ask Greg, and this kind of goes hand in hand with that. And again, that pass button is always on the table, and we don't try to dig for dirt or anything. Sometimes, though, I feel like maybe a testimony isn't something, and but we can always hit that pass button. So I'm curious. On this excellent album, I afforded myself one song to listen to prior to my receiving this album, because I'm a physical media guy. I still love to have the actual, you know, I love to read the liner notes and look at the art and listen to the music and even get that new car smell, you know, when you first open it up. But when the video came out, I couldn't help but watch the video, and that's when I saw the Easter egg of the Guitar World magazine in there. And I'm like, I know why that's in there, and it was great, and I was blown away by Down. And it's a wonderful song. And so, Greg, I was going to ask, the first single, Down. I was going to ask if that was, because it's written in the first person. I didn't know if that was kind of autobiographical or if it was just done that way for the sake of art. Me hablo español un poquito. Quieres is in there, to wish or to want. Yayo means to pass out or to get dizzy or to lose consciousness. And gringo, of course, is a foreigner or American foreigner. I didn't know, Greg, if you were alluding and talking about maybe some experiences. So wonderful song.
Yeah, it's totally autobiographical. That's hard to say. Yayo in Spanish is slang for cocaine. So I put it in there, and I thought about whether or not to put it in there, and I thought, well, why not? That's what the song's about. And we used to go to Mexico all the time. Every time I've been to Mexico, I've had someone try to sell me drugs. Never bought drugs in Mexico because I wouldn't, but in Mexico, I wouldn't. That's just a little too risky.
Oh,
but yeah, this is a true story. So, and I'll tell this story. I went through probably 2 years of a lot of cocaine use, and I'll tell you that this, if there was ever like a might not want to do this moment, the very first night that I ever did it. Okay, so I would, playing all night in the bars, and I used to just drink. And, then I'd drive. But in most cases, and it'll sound like a cop-out, but in most cases, even though I certainly was legally hammered, when you do it, you're used to feeling that way. So anyway, that's still dumb and stupid, and I'm ashamed of all that behavior. But anyway, I go over to my girlfriend at the time's house, and her brother was a big cokehead. And so we're partying and drinking, and then it's like, hey, you want some? And I'm like, well, I've never had before, And so I do my first 2 lines, and boom, I'm sobered up. Wow. This just makes me want to talk. I'm like sober. I don't feel drunk anymore. Then I get this call. This is like 3 a.m. I get a call on my cell phone, and it's my mom. She's crying, and she says, you need to come pick up your dad and drive him to Santa Barbara, which is 4.5 hours away, because your brother just died. Okay. So my brother overdosed. He was a drug user. And so in my mind, I'm like, I've been drinking all night. There's no way I'm going to drive my dad to Santa Barbara. But all of a sudden I feel fine, So I went, picked up my dad, drove him to Santa Barbara just fine. And I didn't take the fact that my brother died the very same night, overdosed. Now his was heroin, something different, but that didn't show up as like a red flag in my mind. So I just kept going with it and used it so I could drink more, because the more I drank, then I would just knock it back with the other stuff. And I found that I can keep a really good balance. So I did that for about 2 years. But getting to the song Down, there was one night when I was asleep, and I had this very surreal dream, I'll call it, where, okay, you remember Patrick Swayze's movie, The Ghost? Mm-hmm. Ghost. Yeah. When the mugger dude, mm-hmm. is in the alleyway and those dark forces come and grab him and just, they just like suck him back down the alleyway. I had the same thing. I had these dark forces that grabbed me and it's like sucked me through my bed and were dragging me down. And it was just like at this horrible speed. I felt like I was just being sucked to hell, right? And I woke up and sat up and thought, oh my gosh, that was like too real to be a dream. Why would I have this? Okay, so did I stop? No, I kept using. And I didn't stop until my wife and I got together, because my wife, she grew up with a mom who was a meth addict, and her mom just died 2.5, almost 3 years ago, finally overdosed. Okay. So Kim would never try anything. I tried so hard to get her to party with me. She would drink a lot, but she would not touch drugs because she grew up with it and didn't want any part of it. And she would just look at me in disgust when I would do it. So there was no big like moment that made me stop. I just stopped because I knew I needed to. And if I wanted anything to do with her, then she wasn't going to stand around for it. Now, I'm going to fast forward because this is very interesting, what tells me something about that dream. Years and years later, once I'm a member of the worship team at my church, once we went back to church, and one of our pastors was doing a guest sermon at this men's group, which was down like in the ghetto part of town. And this men's group, it was like mostly thugs, gangbangers and stuff like that. But then, there's a random like airplane pilot in his uniform and everything there. So they're men that have problems, right? And this was the greatest experience of playing worship that I had ever had, because to see hard grown men on the floor, face down on their knees, weeping and singing, it was more incredible than any time I'd ever had playing worship in church. It was just an incredible thing. But anyway, we had a dinner before the worship service, and I sat at a table with a group of thugs, and this one is telling me this story about how he overdosed. And he's telling me, describing the exact dream I had, telling me exactly what I felt and what I, feeling myself being pulled down, these dark figures, blah, blah, blah. And then he said he was in the ambulance and they brought him back with the defibrillator, however you say that. And so he was dead, dying. His soul was being ripped from him, and he was brought back, and now he's at this men's group worshiping Jesus, So it was at that time that I was like, I don't think that was a dream. At least that's the way I take it. I think that I could have been dying and was spared. Maybe, that's the way I'll choose and prefer to remember it, because it reminds me, So that's what that song is about. It's just about that time in my life and that specific instance.
Well, I appreciate what it stands for and the meaning, and musically it's just, knocked out of the park like so much of this album. But thank you for that, Greg. Thank you for that honest song, and thank you for sharing from your heart with us. I appreciate that. I'd like to ask you, Greg, what constitutes an Applehead album, over a Minear album? When might you say this is going to be Minear and this is going to be Applehead?
That's interesting because, this doesn't sound like what people were expecting for Applehead.
Right.
I just had to, if I was going to do music, I had to pick a name to go with. And I thought, I'll just go with Applehead. It's going to be completely different, but it's also been 32 years or whatever. So of course it's going to be different. But really it's kind of like there's a mix of the two on there.
Sure.
There's some kind of thrashy stuff, and then there's, the little more, and there's more straight ahead rock stuff, and then a little bit of kind of grungy stuff. So I just figured when I wrote and recorded this, I had a no rules approach. And where that comes from is, well, you can't see it on the Queen. Queen was never a rules band. And I always loved them. I loved that they had records where they had 10 songs and they sounded like they should be on 5 different albums. They didn't fit together. There's definitely not as much Queen variety on this Applehead record, but I didn't want to have to be stuck in a mold, in a box. And recording it at home gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted and to try whatever I wanted. And the only one I had to answer to was me, which was a new experience, because even when I was doing the first Applehead record, it wasn't like, it was definitely a lot more free than working with the Crucified because I didn't have 3 other band members, but I still had Chris Morris, the engineer. So there was still a second person that he never held me back from anything. He offered some suggestions when, like, I don't know if that really works, but my self-conscience was probably keeping me from trying things because there was another person in the room. Whereas with this thing, I just got to do whatever I wanted. And the only person I was embarrassed to be around sometimes was me,
Let me ask you, Greg. So Applehead, the name meaning, and I know we can see on the front the display here, but when we just had meaning for the 31 years, is that what Applehead means? It's the skull, or what do you mean by Applehead?
The name itself has no meaning, honestly. There's a place where I got the name, but we keep it a secret. We decided, I've told a few people here and there over the years, but Jaymi and I were talking about it, and we're like, it's better left a mystery. But I'll always tell people that there's no deep meaning in it, no spiritual meaning or anything like that. I just got the name, the idea for it from something a very long time ago.
Very cool. Very cool.
Greg,
leave us some clues or something.
I got a question, and I know this is like picking your favorite child or whatever. Is there a favorite song or a song that holds a special place that you really like from the album? I mean, they're all spectacular, but is there one that you really like or has a special place with you? Or
yeah, thank you for that. I'll say my favorite song, because I think it's the best song overall, and the one that really started the whole thing, is The Destiny. But it's the song also that I won't typically listen to off this because I'm so sick of it. And it's so long. But I'm proud of the way it turned out, and the collaboration and how long it took to put it together. That's why I like it. Also, musically, it sums up the whole record because there's so many sounds and styles within the thing. So
and
I think it's a good representation.
I also like on Raise Hell, I like the talk box part. in the beginning. That is so cool. That's just reminds me of Peter Frampton, but it's so cool, man.
So I'm you know, a pretty big Peter Frampton fan, and back in the cover bands used to play a lot of his stuff, including Do You Like We Do. And that song was always great because some nights the crowd would dig it and some nights they wouldn't. And then some nights, I remember one of the last times I played it, the bar was packed. Of course, no one ever really danced to it, but everyone's just, I'm thinking they're hating this, but I'm still going to enjoy playing a pretty hefty, long talk box solo in the breakdown in the middle, just for myself, And at the end of the song, like the whole room just erupted, and it was pretty cool because I'm thinking, I didn't even know you guys were listening, but apparently were. But my talk box got stolen in 1998, I think it was, and I hadn't played one until I got one. What I guess it was maybe a year ago when I bought one. I know I posted a video on Facebook right after I got it, but I hadn't had one that long, so bought it, and then I thought, well, where could I use this thing? I got to put it somewhere on the record, so worked out perfect on Raise.
It was great, and it gave it extra variety. Like you said, there is variety all throughout, but it's all a cohesive too, and that's what I love about it. What about the album title, Greg? The Light Side of the Apple. Is that anything from the skin on the outside to the core on the inside, or tell us about the title?
So the name. Now here comes my neighbor Chuck again. He made a joke one day, way back early into this thing. And because that middle section of the Destiny has the part that's very Pink Floyd-ish, he threw out the light side of the apple, like the dark side of the moon. And I laughed, but I always kept it up here. And then when this started turning into an album and I had to think about album cover, album name, I thought, okay, I'm going with that title. And he didn't know I went with the title until he first saw, I think it might have been like the Rocks Records post ad with the album cover on it. He hadn't seen it, so he didn't even know. He's all, dude, you called it the Light Side of the Apple. I said, yes. So I took, and also with using that as a title, I kept in mind it better be something that's pretty good if you're going to use that as a title, because that's pretty ballsy, I think, taking that title. So I felt in the end, okay, it's good enough that I could take that title. But anyway, so I met this guy named Ward Silverman on Facebook, and he's an artist, and I don't know if he sent me some, maybe he sent me something, said, if you ever need any, art, let me know. And I looked at the stuff he did, and he said, absolutely. Because I'm going to tell you right now, and I don't want to, upset any other people, but all this AI art, I'm not a real big fan of a lot of it, because it's just generated stuff. It's like, you type in some things and it looks cool, it's great, but I would rather have something that a human worked on and went through drafts and thought about it and put so much time and energy into it. And so I gave him the title, The Light Side of the Apple, and we started talking about what does that mean? What could it be? And we bounced ideas off each other. He started sketching up. The sketches looked like a, elementary school drawing. He's like, don't worry, this is not what it looks like. Get the idea. So the idea of it is, and that's Henry, by the way. We named him Henry. Yeah, he's our mascot. So he'll be on everything from now on. All merch and stuff like that, and on stage and who knows what. But anyway, with
Greg?
the album cover.
Speaking of merch, where can one get Applehead t-shirts while we're at this juncture?
Yeah.
With everyone else's at Anchor Merchandising.
There you go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
No, but that's good for people to know, because we have a killer new shirt out for the record that says the light side of the apple on it and everything. So as a matter of fact, I got a bunch of merch for myself that should be coming soon from Anthony. So I can wear some shirts now that other people are. I'm like, I need merch myself. Yeah. So anyway, the idea of the album cover is that, you got the basket up top. That's like God's pouring out these apples, humanity down to the earth. And then you got the desert floor. Most of, so much of humanity's rotting, withering away. And back there, you got the mountains, and one's like a pyramid, kind of symbolizing, man's attempts to do great things. And then Henry, he's got the light aura around him because he's saved, and in his death, because he's a skull, he's alive, and he's a happy boy, and he's not down here on the floor withering away. And that is the light side of the apple.
Well, very cool. Very cool. I'm glad I asked that question. That's great, man. Oh, it's beautiful artwork. I mean,
It's great. And
so
it was cool to see it through the stages that it went through, and he would say, what do you think now? And I would say, hey, can you put I forget the things I would come back with. And then he would make changes. It's just like with the mixing, the song mixing deal. The same thing with the album covers. You go through and you make tweaks, and you make it be everything that you can.
One of the things that I love about this, Greg, and modern production, and we've already talked about Caleb Stevens doing a great job with the mix, and you a great job with the production. You knew what you wanted and all. And what I love about this, it sounds modern, but yet it also takes me back to the late 80s, early 90s when I'm cruising down the strip. And I can't describe it. It's just a feeling that I get. And I get that by listening to many of these songs. And some of my favorite albums over the last couple of years have been, The Brave with Evie's Little Garden, and Gravedigger and Saint with Heaven Fell, Reign of Glory, I Will Bow, Fear Not with Fields of Sorrow, Striper, with The Final Battle. Greg, this is right up there with those. This is top shelf stuff, and I can't commend you and Jaymi enough. I'd like to ask one other question really quick. On the inside of Lightside, I noticed some friends of ours from Row Creative, Jaymi and Amber Rowe. They took some photos and stuff with you and Jaymi, that is. Did y'all have a fun time, make a good day of it and all?
Oh, yeah. Jaymi's great. And it's funny because let's see. I did 3 photo shoots with him. I did the first one to get some pictures for Facebook, and I didn't end up using any of those on the album, but that was at his house. And then Jaymi Millard and I went to his house for the picture on the back of the CD. And then Jaymi Rowe came over to this room to do the pictures in the, of us pretending to be recording. And then back behind my house, there's a little country road where he took the picture of me riding the bike. But he's a great photographer. Obviously great musician, singer as well. But a lot of people I think don't know that he's a great photographer, and he just loves doing it. And the last time he came to shoot the pictures of me riding the bike, I had to force him to take the money. He's all, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm like, dude, I'm going to pay you. So take this, but he's a great guy. He's a nice guy. I'm so glad I got to, I hadn't seen him. He and I never really knew each other. We were kind of acquaintances from like Cornerstone and stuff. So I hadn't seen him since I was in the Crucified. So yeah, it's pretty cool that he just lives like 15 minutes down the road.
We love Jaymi. We certainly do. I'd like to make an apology if I need to. Jaymi, who's your buddy there?
This is Rocky. Look over here, Rock.
Hey, Rocky.
Look.
Hi, Rocky.
Rocky, hold on. He's not even supposed to be upstairs. Maddie, Rocket up here. Come get him. I'm on an interview.
Is Rocky a border collie?
He is an Australian Shepherd.
Okay.
And when we were moving out here, we had a GSP, German short-haired pointer. Forgot what they're called. We had him, and we had a little Boston Terrier. And we flew out here, so we had to send them with like a dog transporter, which basically was these two women who had all these animals stuffed in their car. Well, our GSP died on the way out of, we believe it was heat exhaustion. So we got out here in the little losing my mind now. Wrigley, or little dog, Boston Terrier. He was like so distraught from this trip and everything, and his brother Dodger was dead. We had to get a new dog. So this one, Rocket, Australian Shepherd, was sold to us, sold to my wife I think it was in Kentucky, as a mini, which means he should have been the size of the Boston Terrier. Now, did he look the size of a Boston Terrier? No, not at all. He was not a mini.
You were giving him the supersized meals, Greg. So
yeah.
So I'd like to make an apology if I need to, and I meant to ask this at the onset. Jaymi, your bass player's last name is pronounced Millard.
Millard.
I apologize for saying something different at the onset, but I apologize. I know now. And
I think you said Millard.
I did. I was trying not to say it again. So,
all the time.
Greg, let me ask you this. So I'm looking at the time here. I don't want to keep you all day today, but just a couple more things. But if you could make a brief statement, Greg, to leave a lasting impression with your fans and friends, what would you wish to tell them?
Oh my goodness. I'm not good at those type of questions. Because I'm like the worst person to ask for something for brief statement.
You could say anything that you wanted to. If you could say anything to your friends and your fans out there, what would you wish to tell them?
Well, mostly I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say a preachy thing because that would be cliche. But thank you, because I never imagined that I'd be doing another Applehead record in 2023, and then already planning on another one for 2024 and playing live. Other than, maybe I would imagine playing covers and stuff like that, but not doing an original project again. So thank you for having interest. I'm gonna throw this little story in because it kind of wraps into this. I have a neighbor. I'm not going to mention names, but he's a very big singer in Christian music. He's very successful. And one night we were hanging out, and I was trying to give him this compliment, and I think he finally understood it as a compliment, but I was like, I think there's so much more you can do. Your voice is so special. That's not you're given that. That's not a, hey, I'm going to work on getting my voice that way. It's so good. And I was like trying to tell him, you need to put out some timeless music, and I wasn't trying to make an insult as if his current music isn't timeless, but I tend to wonder. And the reason I wonder is because fans of metal and hard rock are typically fans for life. Mm-hmm. And when I think about that, when I see artists that have songs that are big now, hits on the radio, well, are people still going to be listening to that 30 years down the road? And it blows my mind how loyal heavy music fans are. They will continue to support, and they want artists that they dug in their youth to still put out stuff as old dudes, even if it sucks. A lot of them don't mind, and they want a physical product. They don't want to just stream it for free, which I have no problem with, but they want to hold it in their hand. They want to look. We've been talking about the inside. We've been talking about the artwork. We've been talking about the production. We've been talking about different writers on there. I highly doubt that fans of My Neighbor ever talk about the album cover, the production, the different contributors to the songwriting, the artwork, the production. I don't know. Maybe they do, but I'm guessing they don't. And that's what I appreciate about the little teeny amount of people that dig the stuff that I did in the past and still want to hear stuff in the future, because it's, there's no monetary reward in this, there's nothing. If anything, it's, you pay money to do it, because you got to buy all the gear to record it. And, I got to pay people to mix it and pay people to do the artwork and this and that. But I love it. I will pay to do it. I won't go out and pay to play live. No, I'll get paid for that. I'm not taking money out of my pocket for that. But to do this, to record and everything, I love it so much that it's just, for people to give me a reason to do it again and to keep doing it, I'll sit up here in this room forever doing it, as long as people want to hear it, listen to it. So that's my big thank you.
Have you ever seen the meme about the daughter who's getting married and the dad says, "I wish you enough"?
I wish you enough. Is that what he said? I have not seen that.
Long story short, I saw a meme, and I don't typically take to memes that much, unless it's one of Luke Easter's puns out there. But aside from that, love Luke Easter, love the puns. But I saw a meme, and this really spoke to me. There was a daughter who had gotten married, and the dad came to her, and he gave her a gift, but he said, "I wish you enough." And she said, "Enough?" And he said, "Yes, I wish you enough." He said, "May you never be so desperate, that you have to clamor just for your basic needs, but may you never be so wealthy, that you forget what true life and living is." In other words, that you never lose touch with reality. And he says, I wish you enough. And that really spoke to me. And it reminded me, Greg, of in the Hebrew, the man, we say manna, the daily bread that God gave, the children in the wilderness, the Israelites, and that in the Lord's Prayer, in the Messiah, Yeshua, in Jesus's model prayer to us, he says, give us today our daily bread. And that meme reminded me of the enough that the Lord gives us, that daily bread. It's what we need each and every day. And so, Greg, the reason why I'm saying all that, because you said a few things and it reminded me, and I just want to say, number one, thank you. It's an honor to speak with you today. You blessed us then. Greg, I cannot tell you, I know that you're not rich, and your brothers and sisters who are doing rock and metal with a Christian worldview in there. I know you guys will never be rich monetarily speaking, but I cannot tell you, I told you that story at the onset. You bless countless kids, not just kids in my youth group, but the world over. You and the Crucified and Applehead and through your Meneer solo album, you did it for the Lord. You were a vessel. And here you are today, and you've got your brother Jaymi, and you're firing on all cylinders, and you're kicking it better than ever. And you blessed us with this release. And Greg, you're a vessel for the Lord again. Not that you haven't been for a while, but I'm just saying we're getting to reap the rewards of you as the vessel and your faithfulness to Christ. And I want to thank you for that, Greg. Thank you for being that vessel for him. And we always read, we call it the message from home. It's a little scripture closeout because Rex and I never want to forget to keep the main thing, because, he is our enough. And resurrects it at vivid, to rise again and live. As I mentioned, Greg, here you are again, and you did it all through Christ. Christ raised you back up. He delivered you from those demons that you said were coming to take you away when you could have been dying. And through Christ, here you are again today, and you're back, and you're better than ever. And that just reminded me of actually 2 verses of scripture, if I may, Greg, and want to give all glory to the Lord. And resurrects at vivid, if I can say it, reminds me of Romans 8:35, 37 through 39. It says this: who will separate us from the love of the Messiah? Trouble, hardship, persecution, hunger, poverty, danger, war? No, in all these things, we are super conquerors through the one who has loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor other heavenly rulers, neither what exists nor what is coming, neither powers above nor powers below, nor any other created thing will be able to separate us from the love of God, which comes to us through the Messiah, Yeshua, that is Jesus the Christ, our Lord. And one other way of succinctly saying that, Greg, is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through him who gives me the power. Thank you, Greg, for being that vessel. And I just give thanks to the Lord. And that's all I can say. Thanks, brother. It's been awesome.
Well, and thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm, honored and very happy.
Very cool. So, Greg, we're going to sign off here in just a second, but please don't exit, because when we close out, we'll talk for just another second. Really quick, I want to put the descriptions, the links, in our description when this airs. What are some places where friends can find you online if they might be interested? I'll put the Anchor merchandising for the shirts. What about your online and socials there?
My Facebook is facebook.com/greg.meneer/.
There's an Applehead page up too, right?
Yes. It looks like, where is?
I'll grab it. I know where it's at on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah. So friends,
Facebook.com/official Applehead / of course, Rocks Records. Anchor merchandising. Yeah, that's about it. And then Jaymi's, yeah, you can just pull his too.
Sure. So friends, look for the links in the description when this airs. And with that said, Greg, it's been an honor. Thank you for the privilege. And thank you, friends, for watching. We'll catch you on the flip side. Take care, everybody.
You're welcome.
It is finished.
Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of Area 312 Rock and Metal Vodcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co-host,
Rex.
Friends, you know our next guest. He was the guitarist and co-founder. One more time.
Take two.
Hey, friends. Say what, Greg?
I said take two.
Yeah, take two. Here we go. That's a blooper reel at the end.